Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never thought a birthday could feel so empty. My name is Ethan. I'm 34. And this was supposed to be a normal, happy day. One where my wife, Clara, would remember even the little things that mattered to me. We've been married for 8 years, and I'd always thought birthdays were special. Small reminders that someone cared. But that morning, as I got out of bed, there was no cheerful happy birthday. No breakfast tray with a note. Nothing. Just silence. First, I shrugged it off. Maybe she was busy. Work has been crazy for Clara lately, and she's always juggling meetings, deadlines, and some new project she's obsessed with. Still, there was a faint ache in my chest I couldn't shake. The kind you ignore at first because it feels petty, but it grows quietly like a shadow. I tried texting her, a little playful. Morning birthday hugs? Nothing. No reply. Hours went by, and I started noticing the subtle little things I'd ignored for months. The way she barely looked at me during breakfast, the half-smile when I mentioned plans for the evening, the way she seemed absorbed in everything except me. By the time I left for work, the emptiness had already settled in like a thick fog. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that perhaps she'd plan a surprise later, maybe a small dinner. But part of me already knew. I had been feeling invisible for weeks, and my birthday was just the final punctuation. I didn't realize how much I'd let it affect me until my phone buzzed with a message from Maya, Clara's cousin. I've known Maya since we met at Clara's family gatherings a few years ago. She's vibrant, sharp, and has this uncanny ability to notice what others don't. She texted something that made my heart skip. Lunch today? I can't believe Clara's letting this day pass like nothing. You deserve better. I laughed softly to myself, a mix of relief and nervous curiosity. Maya wasn't just being polite. She knew the unspoken truth. She'd always been the one to call things as she saw them, and now, for the first time in hours, I felt seen. We met at a small cafe not far from my apartment. She greeted me with a warm smile that immediately felt like sunlight cutting through the gloom I'd carried all day. I told her what had happened, or rather, what hadn't happened. And as I spoke, something strange happened. My frustration, my sense of being overlooked, started to twist into something else. Something lighter, almost mischievous. Maya listened without interrupting, nodding at the right moments, letting me spill out every word I'd bottled up over the months. Then she said it. Simple, sharp, and disarming. Ethan, let's show them. Today isn't about what she ignores. It's about you. Let's make your birthday feel like it should. Her words struck me in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't anger that flared up. It was clarity. She wasn't telling me to retaliate or to humiliate Clara. She was telling me to reclaim my day, my worth, my happiness. By the time we left the cafe, Maya had already started plotting. Not in a mean-spirited way, but in a way that made me feel alive again. A small birthday adventure, she called it. Something that would remind me that my life didn't depend on someone else's approval. We wandered through the city streets, stopping at little shops and quirky cafes I'd never noticed before. Every laugh, every small joke, every shared glance made me feel human again. Visible, appreciated, noticed. And the more I felt it, the more the anger and hurt I had carried earlier melted away. It was as if someone had taken the weight off my shoulders and handed it back to me as energy, as momentum, as possibility. It was during one of those little pauses, when we were sitting on a bench outside a record store, that Maya grabbed my hand. Lightly but firmly, her eyes sparkled with that familiar mischievous fire. Ethan, she said, it's time we make them see, not to humiliate anyone, but to remind the world you matter. You're not invisible. And in that moment, I realized this was more than just a birthday day. It was a turning point. The air felt different, charged in a way I hadn't felt in months. The hurt from Clara's indifference was still there, yes, but it no longer defined me. I had a choice. I could let the day pass quietly, or I could embrace it fully, unapologetically. Maya's grip tightened slightly, just enough to remind me that I wasn't alone. That even when someone you love overlooks you, there are people who see your worth. And with that small gesture, a plan started forming. Not a petty revenge, not a public spectacle, just a series of moments that would make me feel alive again. We started small. Maya suggested we hit the local art gallery, a hidden gem I'd never bothered with before. The moment we stepped inside, I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in months. Excitement. Every painting, every sculpture, seemed to vibrate with life, and for the first time that day, I wasn't thinking about Clara or the hurt. I was thinking about colors, shapes, stories behind every piece. Maya's commentary was playful but insightful, and her laughter, light, unrestrained, was contagious. After the gallery, we wandered into a small vintage bookstore tucked between a cafe and a florist. She insisted I pick out a book that spoke to me. I thumbed through pages, titles, covers, until one stood out, Chasing Sunsets. The irony wasn't lost on me. Today had started in darkness, and now it felt like the first hints of light. Maya nudged me with her elbow. See? Today's already better. By mid-afternoon, we were sitting at a rooftop cafe overlooking the city. The sun was dipping low, painting the skyline in shades of gold and pink. Maya ordered 2 coffees, and as we sipped, she leaned back and said, "Ethan, birthdays are like mirrors. They reflect what we feel we deserve. You've been letting Clara's neglect define you. Let's fix that." Her words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just about a day. It was about self-worth, recognition, and refusing to accept being invisible in my own life. And then, she smiled and said something that made my chest tighten. "Ready for the next part?" Before I could answer, she took my hand again, weaving our fingers together like it was the most natural thing in the world. The simplicity of it made my heart race, not in panic, but in anticipation. "Let's show them," she whispered, echoing her earlier words. We moved through the evening with a quiet, conspiratorial energy. It wasn't about making Clara feel guilty. It wasn't about flaunting our fun. It was about me experiencing joy without apology. We laughed, we joked. We stopped at a little ice cream stand where she insisted I try the salted caramel and raspberry swirl. It was messy, sticky, and perfect. I felt alive, really alive. As the night deepened, we found ourselves at a small jazz bar tucked into an alleyway. Live music, dim lights, the hum of chatter and clinking glasses. It felt cinematic. Maya leaned over and whispered a challenge. "Dance with me. Let's give the night a story worth remembering." I hesitated. I hadn't danced in years, certainly not like this. But when she smiled, eyes sparkling, it felt less like a dare and more like permission. And so we danced. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but with abandon. Every step, every sway, reminded me that life wasn't waiting for someone else's acknowledgement. Life was now, and it was mine. By the end of the night, my phone buzzed. A few missed calls, some messages from Clara that I hadn't bothered to check. But I didn't care. For the first time in a long while, I realized that my happiness wasn't conditional on anyone else's recognition. My birthday didn't have to be validated by the person who had overlooked it. I had reclaimed it. As we walked back toward my apartment, Maya gave my hand a final squeeze. "Remember this feeling," she said softly. "Not because she ignored you, but because you chose to be seen. Don't let anyone steal that again." I nodded, a quiet smile forming on my lips. The hurt from earlier hadn't vanished, but it had shifted. It was no longer the center of my day. It was a background note that highlighted how good it felt to be acknowledged and alive. That night, I sat by my window, looking out over the city lights. I thought about Clara, about the silence, about all the times I'd felt unseen. And I also thought about Maya, about her words, her laughter, her insistence that I matter. And I understood something fundamental. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It wasn't about revenge or showing off. It was about reclaiming myself, my joy, my life. And as I closed my eyes that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the quiet peace of surrender, but the sharp, exhilarating peace of clarity. I had been ignored, yes, but in that absence I had found presence, my own. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of lightness I hadn't felt in months. The weight of disappointment had lifted, replaced with energy, anticipation, and a newfound respect for myself. Clara's reaction no longer dictated my happiness. I had discovered something much more valuable: the power to celebrate myself, to live fully, and to let my own light shine, regardless of who noticed it. And somewhere, deep inside, I knew that this was just the beginning. Not of revenge, not of games, but of recognition. Recognition that I mattered, that my happiness was mine to claim, and that even in a world that sometimes overlooks us, we have the power to make ourselves seen.